Hello and welcome to this video about the wines of New Zealand. Now, vines were planted in New Zealand as far back as 1819. However, the growth of the wine industry was inhibited by a temperance movement and a ban on alcohol sales in supermarkets, which was only lifted in 1989. Since then, however, the industry has enjoyed quite a rapid growth, and now the country exports over 1.8 billion New Zealand dollars of wine every year across to countries such as the USA, the UK and Australia. Now, Averys were actually the first to import wine from New Zealand to the UK, but back in 1970, Sauvignon Blanc hadn't been planted yet. It was actually mostly Muller Thurgau, a grape which was known for making slightly sweet, fruity, floral, quite soft wines. Sauvignon Blanc wasn't actually planted until 1973. Thanks to a well-established dairy industry, New Zealand had a little bit of experience working with temperature-controlled tanks and really strict hygiene measures, which definitely played a role in the consistent, reliable styles that were clean and fresh, cool temperatures preserving those aromatics in the wines once farmers had made that shift from dairy to wine production. Now, if you're a traditionalist and you prefer your wines under cork, New Zealand might not be the country for you. Actually, about 90% of their wines are sealed under screw cap, with wineries boosting the profile of the screw cap worldwide, really championing that method of closure. The vast majority of production is based on the South Island, with Marlborough alone accounting for 2/3 of it. Now, in Marlborough, there are several factors at play which combine to produce that distinctive Sauvignon Blanc style that we've come to know so well. Marlborough is actually on the same latitude as Rome, but it is moderated and cooled by those Pacific Ocean breezes rolling in from the east, and this cools down the grapes in the vineyard and helps to preserve that all-important acidity, which is a key characteristic of Sauvignon Blanc. The southern Andes, which run the length of the South Island, protect Marlborough from the wind and the rain that could blow in from weather fronts from the Tasman Sea to the west. This means that Marlborough enjoys a really high amount of sunshine hours, and that is vital for their ripening process, enabling them to develop those tropical pineapple, passion fruit, papaya characteristics that are typical of this style of wine. There is also quite a large difference between the hot daytime temperatures and the cool nighttime temperatures, and this prolongs the growing season, stretching out the ripening process. So the grapes develop those tropical fruits during the day, they cool down in the evening, preserving their acidity and those floral characteristics, and allowing more flavours to build up over a longer season, often into the autumn because it remains quite dry. This allows the grapes to build up an intensity of flavour with those pronounced aromas on the nose that we associate with this style of Sauvignon Blanc. Compared to the greener, grassier, more herbaceous, citrus-oriented Sauvignon Blancs from the Loire Valley, these wines are intensely aromatic with bags of passion fruit, touches of stone fruit. They can also have a herbaceous note, especially when they are picked slightly earlier. Marlborough can be split into two valleys. Although wines are often made from grapes taken from around the area, you might sometimes see the word Wairau written on a label. This indicates that it's from the Wairau Valley. Although climatic conditions can vary throughout the valley, generally it is warmer, being tucked slightly further inland and protected from the ocean breezes, producing a more tropical style of Sauvignon Blanc. Over the Wither Hills, we find the Outer Valley, which produces slightly more herbaceous, slightly greener, and for New Zealand, slightly less tropical wines due to the proximity to the coast. So if you prefer your wines to be a little bit more restrained, look out for the Outer Valley. They are great enjoyed straight from the fridge, and their consistency and style has a lot to do with their rise in popularity. They've enabled wine drinkers, by labelling Sauvignon Blanc on the bottle, to have much more confidence when they're going out to purchase wine, either in the supermarket or in a restaurant, because Sauvignon Blanc from Marlborough has become its own brand. Just to the west of Marlborough, we have quite a small region called Nelson. Now Nelson is surrounded on 3 sides by mountains, creating a little mesoclimate with mist rolling in from the coast. This means that this area is perfect for aromatic grape varieties because the clouds are captured on those surrounding mountains, giving Nelson its title of the Sunshine Capital of New Zealand, with often in excess of 2,500 sunshine hours per year. Here, the Sauvignon Blanc is slightly more herbaceous, and they also produce fantastic Pinot Noir. Moving south towards central Otago, again we see those southern Alps protecting the vineyard area from wind and rain. Now these vineyards are at 46 degrees latitude, which is about as far away you can get from the equator while still producing wine. It does have a helping hand, however. You might be thinking, how can grapes ripen successfully in an area that might be deemed too cool? Well, moving that far from the equator does extend the amount of daylight hours that the region enjoys, which obviously extends the ripening season. And New Zealand enjoys more than its fair share of UV radiation. In fact, it's so far removed from other land masses like Chile and Australia, the levels of pollution are really low. And there is also a small hole in the ozone layer above New Zealand, which allows more of this UV radiation to pass through. This is important because UV radiation helps to ripen tannins in the grape skins, it helps to ripen the grapes in general, and this is important in regions like central Otago for making red wine from Pinot Noir. Pinot Noir is the dominant grape variety in central Otago, with the quality levels and prices sometimes rivaling Burgundy. Look out for these wines as they're really fresh, pure expressions of fruit, topped with a slightly peppery spiced note. Really delicious. In Canterbury on the South Island we find the Waipara Valley and Waikara. Now although these two regions account for a very small amount of total production, only about 3% in fact, they are, over recent years, building up critical acclaim for their top quality wines, producing wine from grapes such as Pinot Noir, which is quite delicate and floral, with soft red fruits, Riesling, which is quite intensely, ripely fruited, but still very dry with a high acidity, and Sauvignon Blanc, which is a bit more muted in style compared to those from Marlborough. Moving to the North Island, we find Hawke's Bay. Now this is the second largest wine producing region of New Zealand, and it actually has a very similar climate to Bordeaux. So unsurprisingly, we find similar grape varieties, and it has therefore become a champion of the Bordeaux blend, made using grapes such as Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Cabernet Franc and Malbec. Look out for Gimblett Gravels, which is an area slightly further inland. It produces bold red wines of outstanding quality. There is a small amount of Syrah grown on New Zealand, and you'll find the majority of it here. With a floral edge, it's not as jammy or ripe as its Australian counterparts, retaining some of that peppery essence of the Northern Rhone, hence it being called Syrah as opposed to Shiraz. Although it is a very small region, Martinborough is a particular favourite of mine. Located in the Wairarapa region, just an hour east of Wellington, it is popular with tourists and visitors from the nearby city and produces really powerful but elegant expressions of Pinot Noir. When I was visiting New Zealand, I was lucky enough to be taken on a tour of some of these boutique wineries by local family friends. And I know that it's somewhere in amongst those Pinot Noir tastings that I decided to start my career in wine. A 40-minute boat ride away from Auckland, we have the small region of Waiheke. Enjoying a slightly warmer climate than the mainland, it is able to ripen and produce wines from Cabernet Sauvignon and Syrah. Now the wineries are quite small and boutique, so you won't tend to find these wines exported. They're mainly enjoyed by tourists visiting the islands and demand quite premium price tags, thanks to the high cost of land in this region. Gisborne used to be New Zealand's largest wine producing region. However, these days it's more known for its Chardonnay grapes, which are made in a variety of styles, from easy drinking everyday wines to quite premium price tagged wines, which are often aged in oak with lees aging to add those layers of complexity. It does also produce a good amount of Pinot Gris in quite intensely aromatic style.